Thanks for staying with us on the show. One topic that will remain on our lid forever, I want to believe, will be the Nigeria's economy. And of course, we may at some point take a look at that in relations to the sub-region, West Africa, perhaps the region, Africa, that would take it to the global scene. But then it's charity that begins at home. We want to take a look at how much we're faring, what the world thinks of our economy, where we are as a people, and what we can do to improve our economy, especially if it has nothing to do with oil, which remains our mainstay as a source of income as a nation today. So many things we want to take a look into this morning, and it's my pleasure to welcome into the studios a business development expert, Bamidele Ayemibo. Thank you so much for being part of the program today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, one interesting thing that I love about my job is to be able to speak with people like you who understand the dynamics of economics and business, aside the fact that me, I just want to buy something and I can afford to buy it when I want to buy it and use it as I want to. But then if you take a look at the general business climate in the country, what do you see, Bamidele?
I see improvement, actually. I mean, we are not where we used to be a few months back. There's been some improvement, although very slow, and the projection looks good. I'm hoping what is being done in terms of the foreign exchange, for example. I mean, we've seen a lot of improvement, and the fact that it seems to be a lot better than many other currencies so far in terms of performance. But what analysts are saying is, how sustainable will this be if we do not add other things to it, particularly non-oil exports? Because as it is right now, we're getting the capital flow in because the interest rate in Nigeria is high, so investors want to come in and increase and make money in Nigeria. Some people call hot money in the capital market. But the question is, how sustainable will this be? So I think we should be, while the CBN is doing this on one hand, the fiscal policy, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance should also begin to do what they need to do to be able to increase the inflow sustainably. Because if you look at the different way FS come into a country, foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, remittances, and then trade in goods and services. Yeah. Out of all those options, trade in goods and services is what we have control over. We don't have control over this. If the other ones, if the people don't see this country as being worthy of their investment, they move it somewhere else. And so, but for the trade in goods and services, we have control over that. So we can say, okay, we want to grow the inflow into Nigeria to this level, not on oil now, because, I mean, that will bring us back to where we used to be, but rather in the non-oil export space. But as this so far, so good, I think the optics look good.
We depend on the statistics body, that's MBS in the country, to give us very vital information as to our economic well-being. However, we know that the IMF and World Bank remain two multilateral organizations that people in the business in the circle would always respect. I want to look at whatever report they get from them and set the projections that can be realized based on what we have on ground. The latest report released about 24 hours ago really tells us that IMF says, and I of course noted, this is also in our public domain, that Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP fell from $477 billion in 2022 to $375 billion in 2023, and it's estimated to drop further to $253 billion in 2024. Now, the GDP looks like the economic well-being that you can see on the cover of a paper. Let me say that's the headline. When you buy a paper, that's what you see of the nation's economy. What does this say to us as a people?
First of all, the reduction, I mean, the challenge, the drop in our GDP is not because, okay, productivity has gone down because of FX, but the real reason is because of, this is done based on USD, right? Yeah. And there have been serious depreciation of Naira from where we used to be 400 plus to 800 plus, now 1,000 plus. So that's, for me, seems to be the major reason. It's not like if we increase our productivity and then we begin to have increase the value of our currency, at the end of the day, you're going to see it go up again. So I won't want us to really look at what IMF is saying. Let's look at, okay, the issue that happened in the country, has it affected our productivity? What they're saying is true, but the real issue is productivity has gone down. So we should be looking at how do we grow the productivity of the country? How do we increase FX inflow so as to be able to increase the value of the currency, then we'll be able to see the impact on the GDP. I think that's the conversation we should be having. So what they're saying is true, but I mean, we just look at what we need to do to be able to get where we want to get.
And that's the essence of this discussion. As we speak today, of course, there were some reports that the non-oil sector has been able to contribute greatly to the GDP. But then we're trying to think outside the box.
The what?
The non-oil sector.
It contributes a lot to GDP, but not so much to the FX inflow.
Yes, not to the FX inflow, but to the GDP, so to speak. So now, if we want to look at a way where we can have the non-oil exports helping to reflate the economy, what would you say we have to do?
First is to identify, so far, based on the report of MBS, which product is giving us the inflow in large quantity, in large volume. Petrochemicals, fertilizers, cocoa, cashew, ginger. Now, identifying those products, number one. Number two, identify other products we currently do not do so much in export, but we have the tendency to produce more and then to export. That will be soya beans and adding value to our agro commodities. Then government need to be deliberate about supporting businesses that are doing those, that are in that sector. For example, the last administration of CBN started an incentive. For many countries in the world, they always have to incentivize businesses to be deliberate about exporting. Why? Because that will eventually increase the effectiveness in the country and, of course, help in growing the economy. But that was stopped by the new administration. I understand why. I mean, they have to now come up with their own program and the like. But the fact still remains that today, the only incentive we have in the country that seems to be working maybe 20-30% of the time, if I will score it, is the export expansion grant. Yeah. But there are other incentives the government can deploy to be able to, because if you don't encourage businesses that, look, apart from making money in this sector, these are the things government is going to do to support you, so that you find a reason to go into that sector. People are not going to do it. They're going to look for other things that they're going to make money from. Yeah. That, I think, is one of the things that the government needs to do. Number one. Number two is to increase the finance in the sector. One of the major, government agency that is saddled with the responsibility of financing that sector very well is Exim Bank. That's Nigeria's Foreign Import Bank. Now, they're trying to do a lot, but the kind of requirement they need from an average exporter is the same thing a commercial bank will need. The only difference is their interest rate. So that's also a discouragement for a lot of businesses that would have been able to take advantage of the opportunity to grow their business by going into export, but they are not able to because and I understand the issue with Exim Bank. Exim Bank is basically just working based on what CBN guidelines I've given to them. But you and I are in this country, and you know how much is being stolen in this country. Why can't
do you? Well, I don't.
But, you know,
I just hear. No, I just hear. Maybe you do.
But you see what's happening. But you see the paper.
I mean, let's continue.
The government that's chasing up and down, they're trying to confirm the 80 billion, alleged 80 billion.
Did you just say alleged? So continue. Let's continue this conversation.
Now, where I'm going is the fact that with the level of corruption in the country, why can't we take some risk on our businesses? Because what some country will do is to do what they call export credit insurance. So I know if I'm shipping to a country that is troubled, even if I don't get paid, I can insure my proceed, and that's an encouragement for me to want to do more volume.
More.
Yes, now because my proceed is insured, and a number of countries have to do this from time to time to be able to encourage trade.
So if it's this simple as you're saying it,
yes.
What now is preventing Nigeria from paying attention to these not all exports? What are the challenges that maybe the MSMEs are faced with that's really hampering this particular opportunity?
Government, when I mean the government, I mean the presidency is not taking non-oil export as serious as it should be. You know, there's this thing around the body language of the president. The president, when he was coming, was concerned, was very much particular about bringing down the exchange rate, and the CBN governor is doing just that. So, but we're not hearing a lot of conversation around we need to grow non-oil export. We need to grow. And if the president begins to talk about it in almost every speech or the speeches he made, as far as economy is concerned, his lieutenant are going to begin to do something in that direction because that's what the boss is talking about. So we are not seeing deliberate effort to be able to drive non-oil export, bringing out policy to encourage businesses to go into that sector. We're not seeing it. So, yeah.
So what are those particular exports that you think we can engage in, things that you think we can export to really buttress your statement this morning?
I just gave an example the other time that just look at the top item of export of Nigeria right now, according to Nigeria Federal Bureau of Statistics.
Okay.
The National Bureau of Statistics.
National Bureau.
Exactly. So petrochemicals, fertilizers, cocoa, cashew, sesame, those products that we currently are doing in large volume, then we need to support all the businesses doing it to be able to double or quadruple the volume they are doing, because they're already doing it, they've mastered it.
What kind of support?
Finance.
Okay.
Finance, export credit guarantee, export credit insurance, all that they need to be able to increase the volume of production and be able to increase the risk so that they can take more risk because they know the risk is being insured by the government, so that we'll be able to increase how much inflow is coming into the country. And other incentives like post-export incentive, for example, let me give you an example. If I'm shipping now product from Nigeria, I'm going by air, there are situations where I engage with Nigeria Promotion Council on some issues, and they will say, oh, we have spoken to FAN on this issue, Federal Airport Authority. And FAN is not going to reduce that cost because FAN has a target. But both of them are working for the same presidency, the same federal government. So why can't we have a synergy? If we need to increase FX, but the charges of FAN is making non-oil export more expensive for Nigerians. So why can't we have a station which have harmonization so that we all come to the table and agree, how do you want to go? If you're going to be doing export cargo, these are the fees you're going to be charging to be able to reduce the cost that an average exporter is going to use to be able to ship those goods. So that kind of synergy among the government agency to be able to encourage non-export as much as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Please don't forget that you can join in the conversation. Go on our social media handles. Drop your thoughts there with regards to how you think that the nation can grow its non-oil exports to support the Naira and then reflate our economy. All right, let's come back to so many people who feel that if you talk about the petrochemicals and all of these that top the list of what Nigeria could export to gain more forex into the country and then strengthen our currency, so to speak. There are some other products, for instance, farm produces that many Nigerians are involved into, but we hear that many of these are being returned to the country, being rejected in the countries that of destination. How do you respond to that? Because this is not about government policy, it's about individuals who are into business.
I get this a lot. I get this a lot, but that for me is not a major challenge for us. Government is doing something now which I've advocated for long ago. Put a policy in place that ensure bad good does not leave Nigeria, and you will stop that problem. And now they've done that. So if you're shipping from Nigeria now, there are some documents that if you don't have, the agency that is supposed to issue the clearance of the good for export will not issue it. So now that just started early this year when Okojenwela came up with, that news of
the World Trade Organization.
Yeah. So but that's what we should have done before that. Don't worry yourself about the business. If the business knows this will not go, it will fix it. So the real issue is the fact that the product will even leave Nigeria in the first place. It shouldn't have been allowed to go. So now that the agency of government, if it's commodity, Federal Produce Inspection, and Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, if it's this thing, NAFDAC, now that has been fixed, now that if I'm going to ship, I won't get my clean certificate of inspection from the inspection agency. If those certifications are not obtained from the right agency, I will not be able to ship. So that has been the solution has been already done by the government. So the idea is this: if the government keep up with this policy, we will not have that issue again. So for me, it's least of the worry for us as a country. The real issue is ensure it doesn't leave Nigeria, then we'll solve that problem.
Okay, I'd like for us to take a look at the projections now. Let's say government is able to fix all that you've mentioned this morning in regards to paying attention to those exports that can get us to where we want to be, at least close to where we want to be as a nation, and strengthen the Naira, because that's what many people are looking forward to at the moment. Let's take a look at some of the representations of how Nigeria's GDP had grown from, let's say, 2020 to 2022, and see what the impact all these submissions you made today could have if indeed the government starts to look in that direction to grow our economy. In what ways do you think, what pace do you think we can move on to get to where you expect?
No, I mean, the journey of a thousand miles begins with a step. So, first of all, is for us to realize the fact that this is what we must do. Because, sincerely, if you check, when Obama became president, he set up a committee that was reporting to him directly. I think it was headed by the president of Boeing, the plane manufacturing company. And the idea is, he discovered that for every $1 billion good exported out of America, there are hundreds of thousands of jobs created. So we know there's unemployment in our country. We know that this is contributing to insecurity. Then we must increase the productivity of the country and grow the non-oil export. And the president should engage directly. But as to where we want to be, we can do currently. We are doing about 10 to 15% of the total non-oil export. Nigerian non-oil export is about 60 to 70 billion. About 10 to 15% of that is non-oil. We can begin to say, okay, we want to grow it. We want to double it. Even double. That's why I said, can we talk to or work with people who currently do large volume and work with them to double it? Let's just agree, we want to double it every year. So next year, this year we're doubling, next year we're doubling, next year. But before you know it, we can see a growth trajectory that we want to see in that sector.
All right. Let's take a look at the top 10 African export countries for the year 2022 and take a look at this graph and see where we stand as a nation. According to this report, which is based on, it's dollarized. You know, the economies in Africa, if not most parts of the world, is dollarized. Right now, we can tell you for this one that's out for everybody to see. South Africa leads this point in time with $125 billion. It's at 2022 to be the highest exporting country for the year 2022, followed by Algeria, which is South Africa actually nets up to $125 billion. And then we have Algeria nets up to over $50 billion. That's the one we have. That's the graph that we have for you, followed closely by Nigeria. Nigeria now netted in 2022 above $50 billion as well, followed by Egypt, Morocco, and then other countries. You have other information too. This one shows Nigeria GDP per capita from 2002 to 2022. And if you see the projection, you can see that in the year 2015, can we see that graph? In the year 2015, Nigeria went up as much as $3,000 per capita at that point in time. It went up to that, and it's been the highest it's been since 2005 till say 2020. 2020 right down, but we had the best of projection in 2015. I hope that we're able to get that so you can see how we're going. The essence of this is to see where we are right now. Is say from 20. This is it. So check this out. So it peaked basically in 2015. We hope to get the one for 2022, the cost of the program, then goes down, then even further down, and it seems to me as if it wants to pick up from the year 2020. Then we'll get a more recent even for you at this point. What kind of graph do you see being plotted for the year 2024? Onward movement, downward movement, or are we going to stay where we are? What do you see, Bamidele?
Now, a lot depends on the decision the government is taking. First of all, before I answer that, going back to what you read earlier about where Nigeria is. Nigeria used to be number 2 next to South Africa. Before COVID, Nigeria was about 90 billion. Sorry, South Africa was about 90, between 90 and 100 billion. Nigeria was about 60 something billion. Now, South Africa have moved to 125 billion.
Yes.
Since after COVID till now, Nigeria is still between 60 and 70 billion. That's exactly what I'm saying. The fact that we are not making the progress we're supposed to make. Now, Algeria, that used to be number 3, now is number 2. Because they are growing also, and we are not growing. So I don't see, until I see the step the government is taking in this direction, I won't be able to say, I don't foresee a growth. Because our population is growing. So per capita, I don't foresee a growth in per capita until I begin to see exactly what the government is doing as far as our productivity is concerned. So for example, imagine that we need power. The power has not improved, and there is an increase in the cost.
Okay.
Do you understand? Thank God for what Dangote is doing, dropping the cost of diesel, which account for a significant amount of cost incurred in production. We should be doing everything possible to encourage productivity so that we can increase what we have available to be able to export rather than stifling. Because look at this, MPR has gone up. Now with MPR going up, interest is going up. Interest is going up, this is up, power is up. How do you get to produce? Now, I understand what CBN is doing with MPR going up, but we should now support on the other side by reducing their cost with the diesel, reducing their cost with power. So at the end of the day, while they are paying higher interest rate, they also reduce their cost of doing business. So at the end of the day, you balance it up rather than everything is going up and shocking the real sector.
Bamidele, you and I know, even as an economist, I know I don't know as much as you do when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the economy and all of that. But some would say that there's no way any government in the world can do everything at the same time. You've mentioned now that you've seen the trajectory that this administration is towing and you feel that it may work. However, you're not optimistic about a growth in our GDP based on what you see right now. If this is what entrepreneurs will have to deal with, in what ways can they survive?
That's why we need the media, for the government to see the impact of their policies and begin to adjust in a way that help that sector. So amplifying the need for the government, because sometimes, sometimes when you hear some people in government talking, sometimes you realize that it seems as if they are disconnected from what is happening in reality, which is where the media must amplify exactly what is happening so they can know that, look, this thing we are doing, this is the implication on the people. And if we don't do something about it, we want to create jobs, we might end up actually losing jobs. That's why I said, in as much as what they are doing, we need forests to come in, so MPR need to go up, interest need to go up. While that is on and we're seeing the impact in forests coming in, can we also on the fiscal side begin to support the businesses so that at the end of the day, while we are doing one thing or the other hand, we are not destroying. And on the other hand, we are trying to grow the economy, but the people that will produce to be able to increase GDP, we don't stifle how much they can produce so that we can have that balance as much as possible.
All right, I've had this very lovely conversation with Bamidele Ajemibo this morning. He's a business development expert. I'll be taking a look at how the government can ensure that and support the non-export sector to grow the Naira and grow the economy so that we can have a better one to deal with as a nation. Bamidele, once again, thank you for being part of the program.
Thank you for having me.